It's now time for Me and My Roku with your host, Peter Clay.
Who's your guy?
Peter.
So we have a voicemail now from Peter.
Not everybody sounds like Peter Clay.
This is my brother Peter.
Pete, you are not.
Peter Clay is here today. Holy crap, it's Peter.
Oh, I love Peter.
Don't you want to know where Peter is today?
Good luck tonight, Peter.
Your host, Peter Clay.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another rousing, enthusiastic edition of Me and My Roku. I'm your host, Peter Clay. Welcome aboard. This is the podcast where I come in, drop in every now and then, and discuss things that I do in the streaming universe. Me, my Roku, my Apple TV, my Fire Stick Max, my Google TV, my Samsung TV, my actual Google TV too. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. And I explore and then come back and discuss with you. And I just tell you what I do. I'm not here to preach or teach or anything along those lines. I just share and all that stuff. And then in that way, hopefully, that helps you to say, oh, hey, well, if that idiot can do it, then, hey, I'm good. I'm doing fine. So do you ever do that? Do you ever, like, are you concerned about, like, oh, I don't know. I find this with, my finances. I've been, buying stocks. I'm saving up for retirement, and I'm doing all these things. And I listen to these things, and I go, oh, yeah, I'm already doing that. Oh, phew. Okay, good. All right, fine. So we're on the right path, type of thing. So, so when you listen to me, maybe you say, oh, yeah, well, everyone knows that. So we're good. I'm fine. So it's don't feel bad if you feel like, well, if you're stuck on Netflix or anything like this. Is there anything else I can do? Yes. Absolutely. First and foremost, all this stuff, Netflix is fine. But in this universe, there is so much out there. Now, there could be so much out there. It's just like, okay, that's scary. I'm just going to stay here in my little Netflix corner and all that stuff. Or by whatever it is that you enjoy. Amazon Prime, HBO Max, whatever. There's no wrong answer. That's the trick. And I think there's some things that people are trying to tell you, oh, I watch this and you should watch this too. No, watch what you want, when you want, how you want to do it. Just cut the cord and explore, and it'll be all fine. And that's what I discuss here. That's a long-winded of saying, hey, we've got a lot of stuff to get to today, so let's get started. Okay, well, there's a story that's kind of making the rounds in the streaming universe. And that is a report by the Wall Street Journal, which obtained data from antenna streaming. And it's one of these things where, there's streaming wars, okay? And so there's a lot of things going on. And how do you get people to come in and watch you? And then I guess in that regards, stay. Don't keep coming and going, all that stuff, which is part of the whole thing of streaming. But anyway, it's a fascinating story that to me is like, okay, anyway. But anyway, so it looks like a bunch of streaming services got a whole big spike with certain things. Now, we've seen this with Netflix all the time. We've seen it with Tiger King. We've seen it with Squid Game. We've seen it with different things. And now, it's happened to everything. Apple TV Plus apparently got a big spike from the Tom Hanks movie Greyhound. Hamilton was a big deal for Disney Plus. And then, of course, last Christmas, there was Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max. Big spikes. Now, again, also, there was a pandemic going on then as well. But you got a big build-up to something. And then it seemed like, whether it was a month or two or so after that, numbers seemed to kind of calm down a little bit. Now, to me, as part of the streaming universe and all that stuff, that's duh. That's what it's all about. That's what we're here. That's what you couldn't do with cable. So, to me, it's not a story. I guess if you're an investor, you're like, oh, how do we keep these numbers going? I want to see growth. These numbers shouldn't be ebbing and flowing. They should be steadily rising all the time. To me, personally, real growth comes from the ebbs and the flows. How do you keep yourself, fresh and exciting and all this stuff for someone to either stay or come and go as you please and all that stuff? So To me, ups and downs are okay. That shows that you're trying different things, you're doing different things, and you're still relevant because people will come back to you. Kind of seeing what we're seeing from Netflix, because they just released their earnings report last week, and it was kind of, From a investing standpoint, I've said this for years, I'll keep saying it. Netflix as a product is fine. It's really good. There's plenty of things to rot your brain there. That's fine. There is no way on earth it's a bigger company than Disney, Viacom, CBS, Comcast. It's just, you peel back the layers, the onions back on it. What is it? It's just a streaming service. Oh, but no, it's a content. No, it has all these subscribers, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? That doesn't make it the biggest company, the 5th biggest company in the world. I'm sorry. But hedge funds love it, all that stuff. They'll buy more. A lot of them buying on the dip here then too. Then Bill Ackman, a famous activist investor and all that stuff, he's not getting it as an activist, apparently. Just wants to buy more, wants to get in on the deal. So, hey, they can't help themselves. Meanwhile, Disney, fine. Comcast, well, from an investment standpoint, Peacock is maybe struggling, or it's just hasn't matured yet. It's only been a year and a half or 2 years. It's fine. All these products are fine. There is so much there, like I say, to rot your brain about. It's okay, and you can come and go when you're pleased. That's what we fought for. That's what we're striving for, and that's what we got. That's what we want. So people, if you don't like that, invest in Johnson & Johnson or General Electric. It's going to be 3 companies in the next 3 years, something. But when you want to invest your time and your money on what you want to watch, you want to be able to have the choice to come and go as you please. And that's what we like to do here on Me and My Roku. Okay, well, we have a question. Questions are always allowed. You can email your questions to me at meandmyrokupodcast@gmail.com. Or you can get me on Twitter at Radio Affliction. And different things along those lines, wherever you get this podcast to. If there's comments or along those lines, shoot me a question. I adore them. To get yours on the air, it's good to ask a good question, not a question like, is there a way I can get all the NASCAR races and watch it for free? Because, I don't know much about that, and the answer is probably no. But anyway, so here's a good question. This is from Kyle, and he asks, as far as functionality and reliability, would you recommend subscribing to AMC Plus through their app or through Roku? I'd like to try AMC Plus, but I hear the standalone app has had its issues. Does anyone know, do you know if it's improved or any recommendations from past experience? Okay, so as far as your question goes, as far as functionality and reliability goes, their own app should be fine. Now, if everyone's trying to hit Mad Men or Discovery Witches at the same time, that's always an issue where sometimes you're trying to watch it in prime time and everyone's hitting it at the same time. Is AMC Plus Netflix, do they have the backbone, to handle a whole bunch of things all at once? Who knows? That's the thing. So I can only tell you what I do. And what I do is I go to either my iPhone or my Android phone, and I get the app there. And then it asks me, would you like a trial and all that stuff, and how would you like to pay for it then? And then that's how I tied in to my Apple credits. So then all my billing is all in one place. So when someone like me who has a podcast, I like to keep all my things in as much as one place. And there's some other outliers on there because I had to do, so Peacock is through Google and everything else is through Apple, and a couple other things are just through PayPal. Again, these are just things that I do in the background to so that I don't have to pay things out of my pocket. But leave that as it may, it's still, even if I was coming out of my pocket, having it all in one spot, for me, is easier. That's why it's me and my Roku. So for billing purposes, it might be easier to do it through an app. Or like, but not. So okay. So here's the other caveat to that. You're saying through Roku. So there's Roku, there's Amazon, and then there's the Apple TV app. Okay, they have certain apps so that they are tied in with where you can get those billed through your Amazon account. You can get billed through your Apple TV, or you can get billed through your Roku. They also then you have to go through those apps then to access it. So I've seen other people then who have answered the question then are saying, hey, you want to have full control over it, get the app. Like I said before, I'll get the app first and then just use Apple for billing. That's one way to do it. So as far as functionality and reliability goes, it shouldn't matter. As far as convenience goes for your billing and all that stuff, it might be easier to go through an Apple or a Roku or something. So you keep everything all together along those lines. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I try and be helpful and guideful and all that stuff. And sometimes I get confused by my own issues and all that stuff. So these are just things that I do. Case in point, leading to the next story here, we had an addition to the family here. Something I've always wanted to try. I've had an influx of Apple credits and all that stuff, and I'm thinking, well, and so not having Discovery and ESPN Plus on the books, because that's all in a bundle now, I was thinking, well, what else can I get? And I decided to try the Great Courses. All right, so through all the years now, since 2005, if everyone's been, listening to podcasts since then, everyone at one point in their time listening to podcasts in the last 15 years has been inundated with ads from Audible. And so every now you get free credits a month and all that stuff. So over the years, I amassed these credits and I would get a book and all that, and not knowing what to get and all this stuff, being just so many choices, you almost get paralysis by all that. I would get all these credits and I would get credits from the Great Courses. And some of these are, like I said, are now 15 years old and all that stuff. They're a little older. There have been updates and all that stuff. So I just wanted to see what was going on. So I did a 7-day trial of the Great Courses, and it worked perfectly. So it's obviously you're trying to. Is it really fun to watch someone just stand there and lecture you when I'm used to the audiobook experience type of thing for it? But I can just listen to it at night and all that stuff. I don't even have to watch it and all that stuff, and then it just goes right to the next one. So I like it, and I'm probably going to keep it on stuff. And again, that gets billed through my Apple then. But I also have to watch it through the Apple TV app, which I can also do on my phone as well too. So it's not the worst thing in the whole wide world, rather than just getting the Great Courses app itself. But then I would have to be billed through them. So it keeps it all tidied together for me. That's me. That's what I do here on Me and My Roku. Okay, well, we had to say goodbye to some friends, or at least people we knew of in the industry here for many years and all that stuff. I'm not sure if this is going to be an ongoing segment or anything like that, but just enough happened here that enough to just kind of, in my nostalgic part of my middle age here now, that I get to and all that stuff, it just was like, oh, well, that's a shame to... First, Michael Nesmith passed away at age 78. Probably most famously, he's kind of famous for a couple of things. One, having a famous mother was one thing. She invented liquid paper. She was a secretary, and she was trying to figure out ways to correct mistakes and all that stuff, and came up with a way and sold it to somebody for liquid paper for a lot of money and all that stuff. So that actually was later in his life than most people think. But probably most famously, he was a member of the Monkees. And I'm finding that harder and harder to find on the streaming universe and all the stuff. You can look on YouTube and all the stuff. Even trying to find things like how the Monkees came together and all that stuff. It was kind of a made-for-TV type of thing that actually became kind of a hit. And it was Michael Nesmith, as a musician himself, along with Peter Tork, that kind of led the way of getting control of their music. Don Kirshner was the music coordinator and all that stuff, and let's throw Davy Jones in here. And these guys says, hey, let us have some say in this all stuff. So it was a famous altercation between Mike Nesmith and Don Kirshner, and that finally let the Monkees kind of take control of their own music and all that stuff. And so Michael eventually later on said this, well, we just ended up doing what they were doing. But at least they had the chance to do it and all that stuff. Now, he moved on from the Monkees and was in the First National Band. He wrote the song that the Stone Ponies with Linda Ronstadt sang, Different Drum. And then he did some... Now, the Monkees also became popular again through MTV. Right around 1985, 86... inexplicably, all of a sudden, MTV spent a whole weekend playing the Monkees, and their excuse was it was like a 20th anniversary of the Monkees, and MTV justified it as saying they kind of invented the music video. I mean, there was the Beatles and Hard Day's Night, and there was different things and all that stuff. And there was videos out before then and all that stuff, but the Monkees would have a sitcom during it, and then they would end the show with basically a music video with them playing a song. But if you watched MTV during the 80s, not saying I did a lot, but Michael Nesmith used his own money and paid for an ad incessantly for a direct-to-video series of music videos called Elephant Parts. And it won a Grammy, I think, and later on he got back together with the Monkees when it suited him, it seemed like. Like, he wasn't there for the big reunion right off the bat, but then he would show up at a concert or two and all that stuff, and then he got them together to do an album called Just Us, or Justice, depending on, but spelt Just Us. And then spent the last few years here just touring with Mickey Dolenz, and apparently they became really good friends and all that stuff. So Michael Nesmith has lessons. Then just recently here, Howard Hessman, better known as Dr. Johnny Fever, on WKRP in Cincinnati, but that wasn't the only thing that he did. But the thing about WKRP in Cincinnati, which is you can get the first season on DVD, but this just shows still the problem we're having with copyright and music rights and all that stuff. Is maybe you can find some things on YouTube that can't show any of the other episodes because of music rights that they used in there, and it's expensive then to try and remix the music into it, which they did in the first season. So if you can find anything in WKRP on YouTube, check it out. He also was on Head of the Class, which he was on for like a few seasons before he got into a contract dispute and he was replaced. And then he also was helpful in the last season of One Day at a Time. He helped guide them out into happy ending, their type of thing. And he was very good in that as well. And, of course, one of our favorites, Betty White, passed away. What more do we need to say about Betty White? I'm sure you can find... I think the Golden Girls are still on Hulu or Hallmark or something along those lines. But YouTube did a 7-hour video of all her best moments on Match Game. And so that was kind of a fun thing to do. And then finally, this is a real stretch for this show as far as trying to do anything. And again, we probably just have to go to YouTube. But John Madden passed away. And with John Madden's influence on the NFL has probably already been stated by much better people and all that stuff than me. But my John Madden story, I guess would be, is my background is back in the day, worked at the mighty 560 KSFO, KYAFM 93.3. And I was jack of all trades, master of none. But one of the things I would do is I would produce your FCC mandated Sunday morning show. But every now and then I would also fill in on the Gene Nelson morning show. And one of the things I would have to do is I would have to call John Madden. And he would come on for, I think it was twice a week for 3 segments at like 7:20, 8:20, 9:20. And then we talked for a segment, 10 minutes at a time, something along those lines. And so I would have to call John Madden on the phone. And most of the time you just answer, okay, I'm ready, type of thing. Excuse me, I'm all choked up about this. But, so I really did not have much conversation with John Madden at all, other than a couple of times where I called and it sounded just like John Madden, but it turned out to be his son, and it just turned out that I had to call his New York apartment type of thing. And the other time was, I'll take responsibility for this, because that's my job, because can't blame the morning host, but Gene Nelson told me that John wasn't available today. And so then all of a sudden, I get one of my hotlines that flies up, and John Madden calls me up, and he goes, "Why didn't you call me?" "Oh, Gene told me you weren't on it." "No," and all this stuff. So they got on the air, and they blamed me, but I took the hit and all that stuff. But it was just, John Madden was like sitting there waiting for the phone call, and he's listening to the radio. He says he's not there, and he goes, "Well, where am I?" So that was just a kind of a fun John Madden story. There's plenty of things you can find on YouTube, either with him as a head coach, or him doing games, or even some of the documentaries that have been on them, and then I just got to share my own little story here. That's what we get to do here, because it's the me part of here on Me and My Roku.
Drop it, jam on it, drop it, jam on it.
Okay, kids, gather around, not too close. Still got a little ways to go, but we're getting there, and we'll be fine. It's okay, but let's get together here and let's have a little chit-chat, little discussion here. Do you know that January 1st, 2022, an estimated 400,000 sound recordings entered the U.S. public domain? That's right, every single recording through the year 1922 is now free for download and creative reuse. And that is now accessible at the Internet Archive, which you can check out today at archive.org. And they have provided the bandwidth of this podcast and all my podcasts since 2005. It's exciting to see what's now available and all that stuff, just as a reference even, too. It's exciting stuff to see where we came from, where we're going, and what the future holds in the whole lines of archiving the internet. Check it out today, archive.org. Talked about this earlier in the program. It's true, it happens. I do crazy things in the background. That gives me Apple credits, and those Apple credits then I use to kind of keep things organized. So a lot of the streaming services that I use doesn't come out of my pocket, and I kind of keep it all together in one place. You can do the same thing. You can get yourself started getting some Apple credits or whatever it is you want. Want a Home Depot gift card? You want Amazon? Whatever it takes. Check it out today at swagbucks.radioaffliction.com. That's one of the things that I use. There's other things out there as well, too, but that's the one that I probably count on the most, the one I've used the longest, which means they're not going anywhere along those lines. They've been together a long time. They also have a subsidiary, My Points, as well. It's part of the group as well. Check that out today, too. swagbucks.radioaffliction.com. Get yourself started on that. That helps them, helps me, helps you. And that's what we'd like to call a win-win-win. Check that out today at swagbucksradioaffliction.com. Also check out what's now available in the public domain at archive.org. The best way to make yesterday jealous is to make today awesome. Okay, news and notes. And news and notes on this front. This is maybe not groundbreaking news or anything like that, but just transparency is always a good thing and all that stuff. For listeners here who are listening to me on Google Podcasts and Spreaker, there was a little bit of a delay when the last show came out. Now, since I'm not doing a daily show, I haven't really been doing a weekly show lately, you probably wouldn't have even noticed. It just popped up and goes, oh, there you are, finally, type of things. Or maybe you were on Twitter and found it and saw, oh, well, the podcast is up. How come it's not on Google Podcasts yet and all that stuff? So it's complicated in a way, but just know that it's fixed. And everything's hunky-dory now. was Google Podcasts and Spreaker. Google Podcasts has been giving me a hard time as far as claiming the feed and all that stuff since I kind of do it through Spreaker. And I just said fine, whatever, and just kind of did it through Spreaker. And Spreaker had me on one particular plan for the longest time, and now after 3 years or something, it's saying, yeah, you're not on that plan anymore. So I had to go through and delete a whole bunch of podcasts, which I didn't care about that much because you can all get it on the archive, Internet Archive at archive.org. So that's all taken care of now. So it's, you'll only probably get the last 5 podcasts if you want to backtrack and go back to any of them. But that's what I do also on SoundCloud too. So it's not a big deal. Everyone else, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everyone else, Stitcher, all that stuff, everything's good. iHeartRadio, boom. Everything's hunky-dory as we goes there. And breaking news, though, this is groundbreaking, though. Just got an email at me and my Roku Podcast at gmail.com that this podcast with your host here, Peter A. Clay, me, is the 124th ranked technology podcast in Israel. Woohoo! I used to be really big in Malaysia. I don't know what happened there, but hey, we're rocking it in Israel. So thank you for listening, and so maybe that's incentive to do some more because I was as high as 90th, and so I guess the little delay here. So maybe we'll shoot back up there. Let's shoot for 80, huh? Boom, make it happen, kids. Let's see some real news and notes then. Hey, remember how we've been talking about how NBC Comcast may be pulling out of their deal with Hulu, all that stuff? Well, Fox says, hold my beer, we're sticking around. Hulu and Fox make a new deal that will bring their original programming, including things like Hell's Kitchen and Gordon Ramsay and I Can See Your Voice and The Masked Singer, all that good stuff. Going to be on Hulu for a little while, and Fox also is saying that those same programs will also be available on Tubi as well. So pick your poison there. Hulu and Fox still together. Hulu in love with their Tubi service. They love it. And good for them. Some of these people like the Comcast Universal people are complaining about Peacock and all that stuff, and they should just pick one thing or the other. Are they a free service or are they a subscription and all that stuff? And Fox says, we'll just take that ad revenue. Thank you very much. Is Roku, Amazon, Apple, even Google to some degree, are they in trouble as separated box service? Because it now shows here that smart TVs have the highest growth in viewing times. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean, Roku, you're in trouble? Any, dongle-like device? Or how are you measuring growth? Because there's no growth if the stream time stays the viewing are they seeing a drop in viewing time from Roku and all that stuff? So anyway, it's just interesting. Now here in this household here, we have 2 very beautiful TVs. One, a 58-inch TV that Hisense that uses Google TV, isn't it? And I don't want to say the word garbage, but it's not fair to because the TV is great, and then when you hook up an Apple TV or a Roku or anything like that, it's great. But it's, smart TV function, it gets Netflix great, and then everything else kind of lags. And so it's just a lack of processing power. And I've talked for years and years about, I don't care if you've got a smart TV or not, that's how you're going to get your TV from now on. You still need a separate device. I still stand by that today, but we just picked up the brand new Samsung with Tyson or whatever it is. And it seems fine. Whether it's Netflix or Hulu or anything. Now, does it have all the apps? Like, can we get our View It and all these different things that we like on our Roku and all that stuff? Not so far. So there's still limited as far as apps go. And we love our Roku on there. Disney Plus is now showing ESPN documentaries. Now, for someone who gets the bundle, I can get those documentaries on ESPN Plus. So it's a little redundant for me as part of the Me and My Roku. But I might say it's probably easier to find those documentaries on Disney Plus. I'm not saying it's a little jumbled on ESPN Plus sometimes. I know what to look for sometimes when I'm just looking for a sport. I'm not really looking for documentaries or a lot of that other stuff. But hooray, Disney Plus, good job. And finally, and hopefully we're wrapping a bow not just on this podcast tonight, but this story. Lowcast is once again, finally, no more, and they have settled with the big four networks for a grand total of $700,000. Yes, when the shutdown of Locast happened and the lawsuit going on with the networks after they liquidated themselves, that was what was left over, and that's what goes to the networks then. So I told you once before, I would love a service like that where you can just get your local channels, but that's just it. It was a service, and you were claiming to be a nonprofit, and maybe you weren't profiting from it, but you were asking for donations in order to stop interruptions, and you were using that to grow your network to other things. Technically, maybe not making money, but technically a service. There you have it. So I'm getting a little itchy, a little twitchy. I got some things marinating in the kitchen I want to get to and all that stuff, and then I want to have something on the Roku in the background there, so I better get back to that and all that stuff. But I want to thank you, and thank you, Israel, 124th ranked technology podcast in Israel. And thank you. Let's get some of these other places here. Bulgaria. Let's go. Let's hit it. Why not? Anyway, so thank you so much. Thanks to archive.org for their support, the keepers of the Internet Archive, and providing the bandwidth of this podcast and all my podcasts since 2005. How do we get to be the 124th ranked podcast in Israel, or anywhere for that matter? Helps if you subscribe, and you can subscribe to the Me and My Roku podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Ghana, JioSaavn, Himalaya, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartMedia, Podbean, Pandora, and Odyssey. You can follow me on Twitter at Radio Affliction, on Instagram at Pierre Argyle, and as we found out, you can email me. And questions, comments, anything, one-on-one conversations, or show me where I'm ranking in different countries. Email me at meandmyrokupodcast@gmail.com. And hey, I hope you are enjoying you and your Roku as much as I'm enjoying me and my Roku. And I'll be back with you real soon.
That's it. It's over. It's all over.
The cheese just melts on both. So that kind of like kills. Stop fingering the holes. Why are you fingering the holes?
I wasn't. It's just warm in there.
That's not an excuse. That's not an excuse.